Welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Friday, May 30th, 2025, the 150th day of the year, the fifth and final Friday of the month. Sunday will be June 1st and the start of the Atlantic hurricane season. Today is World MS Day, created in 2009 by the Multiple Sclerosis International Federation to, of course, bring attention to the neurological condition, but educate people as well on the condition that affects millions of people worldwide. Sad news right out of the gate today. Former New York City Police Commissioner Bernie Kerik, who was commissioner during the 9/11 terror attacks and worked very closely with Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, once dubbed America's police commissioner, longtime contributor to Newsmax, passed away last night at the age of 69. Kerik was also a veteran of the U.S. Army, where he started his police career, actually, as a military police officer. In 2004, President Bush nominated Kerik to head up the Department of Homeland Security. He withdrew his nomination. Kerik did. Several years later, he pled guilty to charges of tax fraud and was sentenced to years in prison. He was later pardoned by President Trump in 2020. This afternoon, President Trump is hosting a news conference with outgoing advisor and Doge leader Elon Musk. It will be very interesting, and I'm sure we'll hear plenty about it throughout the day and throughout the weekend. Last night, Greg Kelly, whose father, by the way, was the NYPD commissioner before and after Bernie Kerik. I can't not in this moment mention that, right? But Greg sat down with Vice President JD Vance last night. Here's what he had to say about Elon Musk leaving the one big beautiful bill and more.
So how does it feel? I mean, you got here so far, so fast. I don't think anybody fully appreciates that. 4 years ago, at this moment, you were a regular guy.
Yeah, I was just a guy in the private sector, and here I am Vice President of the United States. Well, first, it's obviously a testament to the country, the opportunities that you get here. But, you know, man, I just pinch myself every single day. I walk into the Oval Office. We get to do great work with the President of the United States. And I just realize what a blessing it is to be able to do the job that I get to do. And it's very cool. I mean, for the whole family. I mean, pretty much my whole crew has been to the Oval Office. They've all met the president. My kids are kind of constantly coming and going, and we have all these amazing photos of the kids, walking down the West Wing, colonnade where the president walks with world leaders. We've been able to go to Camp David with the kids. It's just such an amazing experience, and I just try to relish it and try to do as good of a job as I can.
Not since Nixon have we seen this kind of rise, though, and you're faster than he. When you were in Europe, it just seemed like you were born for the role. It came so easy to you. And I know this sounds corny or whatever, but when did you realize you could operate at that level? Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I just try not to think about it too much. I mean, the way that I think about it is, this is a job. It's a very important job, but it's a job, and I just try to do as good of a job as I can. And I think if you sort of stop and think, oh my God, I'm in the Oval Office with the President of the United States, and we're making world historic decisions, I think sometimes you get too wrapped up in it. You just got to do as good of a job as you can, focus on the tasks in front of you, and that's how I've approached everything. It's certainly how I approach this one.
One other thing on this, you're the Vice President of the United States. We know what the Constitution says, but if you were to describe your job, a job title in the civilian world, like, are you the operations manager, a CEO to President Trump's chairman? Like, what is this job most like, if any job, in the civilian world?
That's interesting. I'd actually love to hear the president give an answer to that question. What is my job title? The way that I think about it is, the president is the chief executive, but he needs an extra set of eyes, an extra set of hands, because there's a lot to do. And I'm the guy that he trusts to go and do it. And that's what I try to accomplish is, the president, maybe he has to meet with a world leader, but you need somebody on Capitol Hill talking to congressional leaders or people in the Senate. Or maybe the president needs to be talking to congressional leaders, and he needs somebody over in India talking about issues that matter to the United States. I just try to be an extra set of hands for the president, because it's a big job. And so long as you've got that trust with the president, I think, he's able to give me a lot of responsibility. And I just try to, again, do as good of a job as I can for the American people.
News of the day, Elon Musk is leaving. We kind of knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Are you going to miss him?
Yeah, I am going to miss him. Elon's become a very good friend, really over the campaign and certainly over his time in Washington. I mean, he and his kids have come over to our house and, had dinner with our kids. So I'm very close to him. I think what he's done is really incredible. People sort of forget that when he came into the U.S. government, we had never had a full-scale effort to actually look at, are we spending the American people's dollars wisely? And he found in a very short period of time over $170 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse. I think there's also an effort by the media to sort of say the Elon era is over. And I think that's actually totally wrong. Now, he has obviously a day job, and he's got to go back to his day job to run his companies. But the Doge effort will continue. Elon will continue to be an important advisor for both me and the president. And most importantly, the job of making the government more efficient, of not wasting people's money, that has to continue. I think it's one of the most important mandates that we got from the American people. We're going to keep on executing on that mandate.
As you know, he said, I think on CBS, that he was a little bit disappointed in the big, beautiful bill. Sure. He said it increases the deficit, doesn't decrease. So, is he leaving, not under a cloud, obviously, but he seems a little bit disappointed?
No, I don't think so. I think what I would say, that you'd have to ask Elon, but my sense of Elon is, look, he's a private sector guy, and sometimes the government just doesn't go as fast as private sector guys want it to. I've certainly experienced that frustration. I know the president's experienced that frustration. But I think we've done more in the past 4 months than any administration in American history. And when it comes to cutting spending, you heard the speaker, I think, say yesterday that they're going to start voting on some of the Doge rescission packages. It's going to be, candidly, a harder go in the Senate, because the Senate, you need 60 votes, and we only have 53 Republican senators. So, look, I think Elon's entitled to have his opinions about the function of government. I still think the big, beautiful bill is the way to go. I think it's good for the American people. And I think that we can both cut spending, but also make sure that we keep tax rates reasonable for the American people.
Vice President Vance sitting down with our Greg Kelly. Greg said Elon seems a little disappointed, which is also my feeling, or frustrated, right? Last night, I retweeted a tweet from the Babylon Bee that said Elon Musk leaves job of making government more efficient for a much easier job of sending humans to Mars, which is just hysterical and may be true. The big topic, obviously, the tariffs. Back to Greg Kelly.
So there's a ruling from the Federal Trade Court that said tariffs are unconstitutional or whatever. This is not some crazy judge. This is more formidable than that. What do you have to say about this?
Well, two things. First of all, I think the judge is wrong, and I think we're going to win this case on appeal. The president has very broad discretions to engage in foreign policy, to actually protect American consumers from foreign predators, from people who are trying to access our markets, dump into our markets, destroy American industries. The president has a lot of power to prevent that stuff from happening. Now, this court decision, I think, is really based on a legal technicality. And so, my second point is the president also has broad discretion to deal with this stuff. So even if you somehow, had this legal technicality hold up in court, I think there are a lot of ways in which the president of the United States can protect American workers and protect American workers from these very, very unfair trade practices. And I think it's important, Greg, to say, okay, what does this mean for the American people? We believe, and we're right, that we are in an emergency. You've seen foreign governments, sometimes our adversaries, threaten the American people with the loss of critical supplies. I'm not talking about toys, plastic toys. I'm talking about pharmaceutical ingredients. I'm talking about the critical pieces of the manufacturing supply chain. If these governments are threatening to cut us off from that stuff, that is by definition a national emergency. And in that national emergency, the president has very broad discretion to fight back, to bring American industry back home, and to make American consumers protected and much safer. That's all he's trying to do. So whatever this court has said, I think the president has the authority to do his job. We're going to keep on fighting the court cases. We're also going to keep on doing the work for the American people.
The political pros I talked to say you are the most powerful vice president ever. And
I don't know about that.
And also that you have the greatest chance to get the nomination. It's not even close. The fundraising apparatus, the political machine, it's yours. And they've never seen anything like it. Is that true, their assessment?
Yeah. I have no idea, Greg. I mean, my attitude on this is, first of all, anything that I'm able to do because the president empowers me to do it on his behalf. If you look at the role of the vice president in the Constitution, it's not very well defined. It's very much dependent on the president. And so if I'm able to do good things, it's because the president has trust in me. That's a great honor. And again, I just try to do the best job that I can. On the politics, man, I'm much more worried about the midterms than I am about anything in 2028. And I'm much more worried about what's going to happen next month than I am the midterm elections of next year. So my attitude is I focus on this job. I try to do as good of a job as I can. The politics will figure itself out.
Vice President J.D. Vance, thank you.
Good to see you, Greg.
Very, very
Thanks,
much.
man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So there you go. Greg Kelly sitting down with Vice President Vance. And let's go back to yesterday's White House press briefing for a moment.
Thank you, Karoline. Question on tariffs, but first, actually, some foreign policy news, some breaking news. Some local Israeli media is reporting that Prime Minister Netanyahu told hostage families that he's accepted a 60-day truce offer. So can you confirm, have Israel and Hamas agreed to a truce?
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. I won't comment further as we are in the midst of this right now.
So to be clear, you don't know if Hamas has accepted it yet?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that becomes the case and this ceasefire goes into effect, you'll hear it directly from myself, the president, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
And on tariffs, Kevin Hassett earlier this morning, he brushed off a legal ruling, called it a hiccup, and he said that trade deal negotiations would continue. Why would other countries continue these trade deal negotiations given the ruling?
Because other countries around the world have faith in the negotiator-in-chief, President Donald J. Trump. And they also probably see how ridiculous this ruling is, and they understand that the administration is going to win, and we intend to win. We already filed an emergency appeal. We expect to fight this battle all the way to the Supreme Court. These other countries should also know, and they do know, that the president reserves other tariff authorities, Section 232, for example, to ensure that America's interests are being restored around the world. But I can confirm that our ambassador for trade, Jamison Greer, already heard from countries around the world this morning who said they intend to continue with these negotiations.
Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, they probably know the president is going to win, and we are going to win. And they did win. For now, only hours after the White House press briefing, an appeals court granted the White House request to temporarily stay a lower court's order, allowing President Trump's tariffs to continue for now. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit said that it would temporarily pause the effects of the decision from the Court of International Trade, which ruled on Wednesday that most of Trump's tariffs were illegal and must be halted. But for now, again, the tariffs go on. All of this led to a wild day in the financial markets. Up and down, up and down. Stocks closed slightly higher. This morning, stocks are slightly lower. Lydia Serrani recruited fellow Newsmax host John Tabacco to help make sense of it all.
Markets around the world are now reacting to the news that a 3-judge panel at the U.S. Court of International Trade struck down the vast majority of Trump's tariffs. The NASDAQ is now up about 100 points, while the S&P 500 is also in positive territory right now. For the very latest, we're joined by John Tabacco. He's a host of Wise Guys, and he's at the White House today. John, explain to us in layman's terms. People don't realize that you spent decades on Wall Street. So if anyone knows what this all means, you do.
Well, Lydia, you know my famous line for regular investors sitting at home wondering what the heck to do with all this noise is namaste. Regular retail folks should stay calm. If you go back and remember back on Liberation Day, April 2nd, the market was down. It was down in the next few days as low as 37,000. Now we've gotten all those gains back. I look across the globe. I talk to international institutional money managers, and the general opinion is at this point, yawn. Not much to see here. There's so much volatility in the market that day by day, Trump could get an injunction tomorrow. He can go to the Supreme Court next week. So I think some of this stuff is already baked in. I think people should stay calm and know we've had, I think it's the greatest 4 weeks in over 3 years in market performance since Liberation Day. We've seen the market get back all those losses. And I think Trump is close to resetting the policy, but it does sure feel like the lawfare against him and the political persecution against him is now trickling into kind of presidency by the judiciary, where time and time again they seem to be intervening in places where the president would usually be able to use his executive powers. So he's
John,
up against a lot, but I think we have the attention of the globe.
Yeah, John, if you watch the fake news media, they try to convince you that the economy is in a downward spiral, unemployment is up, and even Kevin O'Leary was on CNN and he hit back and he said, guys, the economy is on fire. Would you agree with that statement there?
Yeah. Lydia, this is another in a long line of lies told to us by the fake news. I don't need to go through all of them, but I would just say this. GDP growth, up. Employment numbers, getting better. Markets back up to where they were before. And the other day, a key metric, we saw consumer sentiment numbers off the charts, beating expectation by almost 20%. So what the news tells us and what people in America are feeling are two vastly different things. And the truth of the matter is, your 401k is not going to vanish. Your IRA is just fine. Stay calm. This is all Trump's art of the deal stuff. When the dust settles, America First is going to lead the way, if you ask me, Lydia.
Wall Street veteran and sharp-dressed John Tabacco, the host of Wise Guys, Saturday night at 9 Eastern on Newsmax. Check it out tomorrow night. And let's shift gears a bit to immigration. Greta Van Susteren spoke with border czar Tom Homan.
Today, Democratic Arizona Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari went to Eloy ICE detention facility in Pinole County, Arizona. Pinole County is in between Phoenix and Tucson. It's also roughly 71 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. On her way to the ICE detention center, the Congresswoman said this.
Hi, everyone. This is Congresswoman Yasamin Ansari. I am on my way from Phoenix to Eloy today to visit the ICE detention center. I will be performing oversight duties as a member of Congress. We know that across the country, our ICE detention centers are at over 100% capacity, and we've heard very concerning reports about lack of food, lack of health care, and lack of mental health support. We've also heard a number of very concerning reports about dehumanizing behavior towards the immigrants and towards the detainees at these facilities, and in some cases, living spaces that are so dirty they're uninhabitable. So this is why I'm heading to Eloy right now. I want to investigate and perform oversight, as I'm legally permitted to do as a member of Congress, and make sure that every single person that is in these detention centers is being treated with dignity and with respect, and given the due process that they are afforded by our Constitution here in the United States.
Border Czar Tom Homan joins me. Good evening, sir. And the Congresswoman went there to do oversight to make sure there's dignity and respect. So let me flip the coin a little bit on this. Is there oversight to see that there is dignity and respect given to our ICE agents?
Of course there's not. But look, I welcome any congressperson to go to our facilities. I've said this over and over again. ICE has the highest detention standards in the industry. I'll put them up against any Arizona, and she's Arizona representative. I'll put the ICE facility up against any county jail in Arizona or their state prison system. I'll put up against any federal system. ICE has the highest detention standards in the industry. Matter of fact, taxpayers probably get upset and realize how much money ICE spends on these detention standards. I'm blessed she's at least doing it the right way. She's not pushing her way in the facility and putting hands on officers. So I welcome the visit. But you're exactly right. You know, they demonize ICE every day, demonize the minimum of the Border Patrol, demonize the Trump administration. But when it comes to illegal aliens, they want to wrap their arms around them and make sure that they're well protected. But I can guarantee you, when she goes down there, she's going to see a very well maintained facility.
I suppose it'd be a good idea as well, as besides Congress doing oversight, and that is one of the jobs of Congress, and is if the media likewise went in there with cameras, is the media allowed into these facilities to check them out to make sure that they meet our standards?
Absolutely. When the facility up in Newark, we had the mayor and members of Congress forcing their way in that facility, the media, we allowed media in the next couple of days to look at the facility. So, yeah, we welcome the media. And they need to understand not only that highest detention standards, the inspections are over ridiculous, right? So they're inspected by the Office of Detention Oversight. They're inspected by CRCL. They're inspected by the Office of the Inspector General. They go through numerous inspections, unannounced inspections all the time. So I'm confident what she sees is going to be a better facility than anything that the state of Arizona has. I promise you our facilities are much nicer and much more better maintained. I guarantee it.
I've been reading today that ICE agents are assaulted and doxxed every day. Doxxed meaning their personal information is put on the internet, etc. And every single day I sort of track to see what's going on with the ICE agents. It's not an easy job. And I'm wondering, how's your recruitment? I mean, your recruitment pitch can't be join ICE, you get doxxed, you get assaulted. I mean, what's your recruitment pitch to get people to come sign up for ICE, or don't you need people?
Well, look, our recruitment is good. I mean, ever since President Trump was elected, and the Border Patrol couldn't meet the recruiting numbers the last 4 or 5 years. But last month, Border Patrol had the highest recruiting numbers at any time in the history of the United States Border Patrol. So now that they know we got President Trump in office, you get to do the job that you signed up for. You get to uphold the oath you took. A lot of people want to come back and make America safe again. They want to secure our border and protect America. A secure border gives us strong national security. So recruiting right now, not a problem. We just need Congress to pass that budget to give us money to bring out more resources. We need money to hire people. That's what we're waiting on.
Border Czar Tom Homan on the record with Greta Van Susteren, welcoming Democrats and all of Congress to come visit but not disrupt ICE facilities around the country, and saying ICE recruitment is at an all-time high. I personally know a Border Patrol agent, not an ICE agent, but Border Patrol. And border correspondent Jason Jones has told us, and some border agents that listen to this podcast have told me, morale is extremely high, and they're happy that they are getting to do their jobs again. Here in Florida, Governor DeSantis has really cranked up the crackdown on immigration enforcement. More than 100 undocumented immigrants were arrested yesterday at a construction site in Tallahassee. This is on top of 100 or more that were arrested last week. I mentioned President Trump is holding a news conference with Elon Musk this afternoon. Then he will be going to the U.S. Steel Corporation near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Shout out to the Berg, where he'll talk about the investment deal or partnership with Japan's Nippn Steel, keeping U.S. steel in Pennsylvania and creating more jobs. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer spoke with Mark Lotter on Wake Up America.
When I found out this deal was done and inked, I couldn't be more excited to go down and start to visit with those steelworkers as we create these 70,000 new jobs. This is important for the economy, this is important for America, and this is a historic deal that the president has made with U.S. Steel.
I mean, I remember last year, I think it was, when this deal with Nippon and U.S. Steel was originally announced. Nippon, the Japanese company, was going to acquire U.S. Steel. Both then President Biden, then candidate Trump came out against that U.S. Steel being taken over by a foreign company. But the president went one further. He said, I'm going to keep a deal to keep the money, the investment coming in, protect American workers, protect U.S. Steel, and partner it with Nippon. I mean, this seems like a win-win for the company, for the steel workers, and ultimately even American national security.
Well, first and foremost, what the president did there was protect the American worker, onshoring and having in the agreement that those American workers will stay here in the United States was key. That has been his focus from day one. That is what we are working on together, is to grow this economy and to make sure that we're protecting the American worker first. And he sealed the deal.
You know, a lot of times when we think of steel, I think a lot of people think of bridges, buildings, cars, things like that. But really, this is a national security issue because it's about submarines, aircraft carriers, battleships, satellites, missiles. And that's really one of the big focuses of the president, to make sure that we still have domestic manufacturing in areas that are critical to national security.
Absolutely. We have to be self-reliant on the United States of America first. If we're going to be dominant, not only does this open up the manufacturing sector, but it's going to open up many other sectors as well, the energy sector. And so we have to be self-reliant. The president understands that. And now Pennsylvania is going to understand that tonight at this great rally that we're going to have.
You know, one of the things that I keep taking note of is that while many in the mainstream left-wing media are focusing on the Dow Jones Industrial Average or other arcane little like employment statistics, the real work is happening tonight in Pittsburgh. It was when you saw General Motors announcing an expansion of their production facility in Indiana, or Ford, or Stellantis, more American manufacturing coming back to America. It hasn't shown up in the stats yet, but it will.
Absolutely, it will. Tens of trillions of dollars have already been committed. That's the key, that we are going to invest in America first. We're seeing those job numbers come back. We saw them in the first 2 months. And since President Trump has been in office, more than 450,000 jobs have come back to America. That's only going to continue as long as these investments continue. And the president is laser focused on this. And I will be right by his side to make sure that those American workers are skilled and ready to go.
Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer on Wake Up America. Again, President Trump will be speaking from U.S. Steel in Pennsylvania later this afternoon, and then I'll be headed back to the White House. Republican Senators John Cornyn of Texas and Eric Schmidt of Missouri announced that they will co-chair a hearing next month to investigate who was actually running the country in place of former President Joe Biden and the plot to cover up his cognitive decline. Next month is actually next week, so that'll be getting going soon. The Senate will be hard at work on the one big beautiful bill, while the House now works to pass the billions of dollars in DOGE cuts that were sent to them by the White House this week. If you missed it last night, the Edmonton Oilers beat the Dallas Stars to win the NHL Western Conference Finals and will now face the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup for the second year in a row. Edmonton and Florida, a repeat. And if you missed the Newsmax Daily yesterday, I'll mention this again. It is the sixth consecutive year that a team from Florida is playing in the Cup. 3 years, 2 wins back-to-back for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the third straight year now for the Florida Panthers, who are looking for their second and consecutive and would-be back-to-back championship as well. In the NBA, the New York Knickerbockers did beat Indianapolis to avoid being eliminated. The series is now 3-2. Indy leading 3-2. The winner will play Oklahoma City for the championship. As I mentioned a little while ago, stocks opened slightly lower this morning. There is also big crypto news today. The Securities and Exchange Commission dropped its lawsuit against Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, ending one of the last remaining crypto enforcement actions from the Biden administration, which accused Binance of mishandling customer money and some other violations. Again, the Securities and Exchange Commission dropping the lawsuit. Bitcoin did lose some ground overnight, back down to 106,000 and change, which was kind of surprising. I thought we might see another little rally after Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump spoke at the big crypto conference at the beautiful Venetian Hotel in Vegas yesterday. One of my favorite. If you've ever been there, I'm not crazy about how you know, the casino is sort of in the basement, like you have to go downstairs to get in the casino, but it's beautiful. If you're house hunting this weekend, the average rate on a 30-year mortgage rose slightly from 6.86% up to 6.89%, according to Freddie Mac. You can keep up with all of the news today. There will be plenty of it, and throughout the weekend, there will be plenty on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com. Make sure you're streaming Newsmax Plus for all your favorite shows, hosts, and guests. Starting with Wake Up America Weekend Edition, Saturday and Sunday morning, America Right Now, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Tom Basili. Saturday and Sunday report, Sunday agenda, Michael Savage on Sunday night, Rob Carson, Ambassador Nancy Brinker, documentaries, and much more. All right, stick with Newsmax throughout the weekend. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a terrific weekend doing whatever it is you love to do. And keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.